Hey friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge. And before we start talking about this, yes, you have spoken, I have heard. I will do a video where I show you the knives that I have in my collection. So that should be done by the end of April 2021. So I got like 11 days, 10 days, whatever it is, to do that. Just so you know, if you're watching this at some other time, you can go back and see what my collection looked like as of, April 2021. Let's talk about this knife. Today we're taking a look at a cold steel knife. This is the Bush Ranger Lite. There's the Bush Ranger that Cold Steel makes, which has, G10 and S35 VN stainless steel. This is glass reinforced nylon with 8CR13 MOV, a Chinese steel. It's a Chinese steel that I like. It's a good budget steel, in my opinion. And so, what do I think of this knife? There certainly are pros. There definitely are cons. Let's take a good look at this thing to see if you can live with the cons and make your own decision. Let's get to the tabletop to take a good close look at this knife, share all the details with you, and hopefully you'll have a good time watching this. Stick around. So here is the knife. But before we go into the details of this knife, let me tell you, yes, for the OLIGHT video that I did just a few days ago, the winner of the Baton 3 is Becky M. Becky M, congratulations. I replied to your comment and gave you instructions on what the next steps are. Congratulations to Becky. Now for this knife, let's take a good look at it. In my opinion, for my carrying, this is a little big for EDC. But there's some guys who carry knives this size all day long for EDC, and it's just exactly what the doctor ordered. So it all depends on who you are, what you prefer for size. For me, I would prefer something that's maybe a little bit smaller in the handle. The blade length is pretty good. It's a little more robust than what I feel like I need for an urban EDC knife. But it certainly is a good knife to take along, like to go camping, hiking, working in the yard. If you need a knife to do some harder work, this is actually a very decent knife. If you're into knives for self-defense, then hey, yeah, this is not bad for that either. It's a very strong blade. We've got a thick blade, well over 1/8 of an inch. I'll give all the specs on the dimensions and everything later on. But we've got the full blade thickness all the way up to where my fingernail is right there, which means that last little bit is just coming down to the tip, so you've got a strong tip in here. It's over 1 millimeter thick behind the grind back here. Here where the cutting edge is, where you use it mostly, it's thinner and better, but it's a big, strong knife right there. We've got a swedge here. The way it terminates right at the end here, it's kind of, abrupt instead of smooth. If you run your fingers along here, it's like a tiny bit of a hook right there on both sides, like how quickly it sort of ends right away. There are a few cons on this knife that I would change. If I'm going to keep this knife for myself, I will definitely change these things. One of them has to do with the blade, maybe more than one. That little smoothing out there, that's really easy to fix. The next thing is down here, there's no sharpener's choil. I do like a good sharpener's choil. It's not like they made a mistake right here. That's not a sharpener's choil wannabe. That's a spot where the stop pin for closing the knife engages. So when you close the knife, you don't want the cutting edge to slam into anything back here. So it hits right there. That spot hits a stop pin that's right down in there. And that causes the blade edge to be protected when you close the knife, so the tip doesn't hit anything nowhere. So that's really good. But they didn't have to come back down this way. They could have stayed up and then brought it down here as a sharpener's choil. Just taking off a little bit of that steel. That would make the blade edge end terminate in a spot that's nice and clean, easy to sharpen right to that spot. So right now, when you sharpen right close to the end here, it starts to become a little bit of a mess right there. Some other things about the blade. It's got the typical cold steel dark black writing on it. It's not too big on this side, which I kind of like. Just cold steel. The steel type says China. On this side, Bush Ranger Lite. It could be written bigger. I'm glad it wasn't, but it could have been written bigger on there. You know, it's a nice satin blade. I like this clip point. It's a very usable knife. You could even use this knife to do some skinning if you need to, because it's got that nice belly over here and this long straight edge, you know, good for slicing a lot. Let's talk about the transition between the blade and the handle, the pivot area here. There's a couple good things here. I like what they did right here. They made it sort of like a forward choil, and it's nicely rounded, very comfortable for a finger to get in there. And then you can put your thumb up here, and it's comfortable, nice and wide steel. There's no jimping or anything. Maybe a little bit would have been nice. Something not too coarse, or not too sharp, I should say. That'd be a good thing. But sometimes I found myself wanting to put my thumb right there, and here comes a con. And this is one that's so easy that they could have fixed. You see the back of the blade, and then the back spring here, which is the back lock as well. Where it meets here, this glass reinforced nylon just comes up to a sharp edge for no good reason. Sure, it looks a little bit nice this way. It looks like a little bit of a guard, but it's irritating. If you end up pushing your thumb on there and end up pushing down on something, it's bothersome. It's not good. They shouldn't have done that. Very easy to fix. A little bit of sandpaper, a little piece of wood. Wrap the sandpaper around the piece of wood so it's nice and flat, and just take that down to the triad lock back up here. And then you'd have a nice smooth transition. It'd be much more comfortable and better, more user-friendly. It's just silly that they did that there. The screw here looks like a T10. I've not taken this knife apart yet, but I'll show you the insides in the video later on. Since it's smooth on this side, that tells us it's almost invariably a D-shaped pivot pin, which is good, not free spinning. Take it apart here. That's a good thing. Nice, big, robust screw. Brings us to another con. Why did they use little T6 screws back here? I think they should have used T8 screws back here at least. This is a big, robust kind of knife. Use big, robust screws. Well, not that T8's big and robust, but certainly T6 is even further from being big and robust. T6s tend to strip out much more easily than T8. So, yeah, use T8 screws, would you? Cold steel, this was not a good idea. If you, rework the machining for this production, put in bigger screws. Even if that means you have to put a bigger hole in the handle scales to accommodate that screw, it just deserves larger screws. T6 here, that's fine. T6 here for the pocket clip, that's fine. But yeah, it's not good. Some other good things, you've got a nice shaped back of the handle. It, feels good in the palm of the hand. It's nicely rounded, very comfortable. The texture on here is not too aggressive. It feels good. You can work for quite a while, and just the knife does not get tired in the hand or hot, except for, stuff like that. We got a right and left pocket clip, which is good. The pocket clip is not overly large. It's got a nice spoon here, stands off. Let's demonstrate. Here I've got my stand-in pants. I don't actually stand in them anymore. See, the pants want to climb over, well, not the pants, the pocket clip wants to climb over the edge of the pocket, and, it's pretty nice. It doesn't, you've got a lot sticking out there. It's almost an inch, about 2 centimeters sticking out. Yeah, not bad at all. The texture's on there. It's easy to grab and pull it out. If you want a knife that hides in your pocket, yeah, get some other knife. But this, 3 screws, it's robust, it's strong. I like that it's a nice stone wash or bead blast kind of finish on there. It's more like a bead blast. So it's not grabbing attention. It's a good pocket clip as far as that goes, but I wish more companies would take a lesson from Spyderco. When they do a lot of texture like this, make it smooth right underneath the pocket clip right there so that it doesn't grab, because it really pulls on the pocket and it does damage to the pocket. It starts making it start to fray and things. A little smooth spot right there where it touches would be good. They did one good thing. Actually, it's a really good thing. The knife is not just flat on the sides. It goes in right there, right where this space is. It goes in, which leaves lots of room for your pocket to sit there free, not pulling on it, not causing it to, be damaged or anything. There's very few knives that have this. Most knives, it's just sort of a flat slab. It's a small thing that I'm very thankful that they did it. That's a good move. That shows that they've got some attention to detail. And then other times they show that they've got zero attention to detail. It's kind of odd, but I'm glad for the good things. I certainly am. The placement for the lanyard hole, perfect. I like it further away so that when you've got the knife in your hand, the paracord that you've got here doesn't sort of interfere with the palm of your hand. So the placement's quite good. The handle's got a nice belly in here, a nice index finger choil there. Feels really good in the hand that way. The balance point on this knife is very well done. It's right there. So quite comfortable indeed for that. The weight's not too heavy. It's just a little bit over 5 ounces. Again, I'll give all the rest of the specs later on. It's a pretty good knife. It's got the pros that I really, really like, and not that awful many cons. The little cons, like fixing this and fixing that, if I've got time at the end of the video, I'll show those fixes. Otherwise, I'll make a separate video on the tiny fixes to make this an even better knife. I didn't talk about the thumb studs. They've got this sort of honeycomb kind of shape to them with those ridges on them or bumps on them. And then you open the knife. It just works really well. You can remove it if you want to. They've got a nice big T10 screw hole there. So the thumb studs can be removed if you don't like them there. You could always just open the knife, pinch it and open it up. If you don't like having thumb studs, some people say, I'm cutting through stuff, it gets in the way, and, it's going to bump into the thumb stud. I don't mind where the thumb stud placement is. It works just fine. You got at least 95% of the blade that you can cut through without it hanging up on there, so it's not a problem in my opinion. Now let's go over all the sizes, dimensions, and that kind of stuff. The dimensions and everything, I'll have this on the screen while I'm talking about all of those things. Like I said, 8CR13 MOV, Rockwell hardness is about 58, which is quite good. I like this budget steel. It's durable, it's tough, it holds an edge fairly well. You can sharpen it in the field if you want to. Not quite as easy as 420 or something like that, but it does sharpen fine. The weight of this knife, 145 grams, 5.1 ounces. So it's not a bad weight. I showed the balance already. How sharp was it from the factory? I measured 130 bests, which is not bad at all. The blade length and the cutting edge length are almost exactly the same. So I'm just going to give one number, 89.9 millimeters, 3.359 inches. Quite good. The thickness of the blade, 3.67 millimeters, which is 0.1415 inches. 0.125 is 1/8 of an inch, so it's over 1/8 of an inch. The blade depth, the widest spot is right here, 32.9 millimeters. That's 1.295 inches. No, 296. The thickness behind the grind, about the same spot where I measured the sharpness, right where you would cut the most. 0.59 millimeters. That's 23 thousandths of an inch right here. Like I said, it's thicker up here. The grind angle. Well, the grind angles weren't that good. Let's do this side first. At the heel, 22.4 degrees. Right in the middle of the belly here, 23.8 degrees. And at the tip, just a bit behind the tip, 25.9 degrees. On this side, 21.4 degrees, 26.1 degrees, 22.9 degrees. So it's fairly variable. With this steel and, the kind of use, hard use this can do, I would probably sharpen it to 20 degrees per side, maybe 18. Anywhere between 18 and 20 degrees per side is quite good for this steel, for this type of use. Let's do the handles now. The handle length is 124.5 millimeters, 4.9 inches on the nose. The grip area, it's right around 9.5 centimeters, about 3 3/4 inches. It's not an exact number because, it's kind of variable where you measure it. The handle thickness, not counting any of this metal sticking out, and I'll talk about this later on. But right here, it is 16.5 millimeters. That's 0.65 inches. So it is a thick knife handle. The handle depth within the grip area, its biggest right here, 32 millimeters. That's 1.26 inches. When the knife is closed, the biggest area is right here again, 43.4 millimeters, 1.71 inches. And then the total length of the knife with the blade deployed, 215.4 millimeters, 8.48 inches. So 8.5 inches with a 3.5 inch blade. That's not bad at all. It's got good proportions. This lock, it's another con in my opinion. I think it's silly. It has the triad lock. That's going to keep this knife open. If the triad lock fails, well, then the knife deserves to go in the trash anyways, because it's going to take an awful lot for the triad lock to fail. It doesn't need this here to stop it from failing. But what that lock does, you move it forward and you cannot disengage the triad lock then. It has a little bit of wiggle room, but it can't be disengaged. The bad thing is, sometimes I had a tough time disengaging that triad lock. If you do it just, see there, it got caught just a little bit. If you don't push it just right, it sort of catches. And so I don't like it. If you use your fingernail and just catch the edge of it, sure. But the problem comes if you push down a little bit while you're trying to move it, it sometimes catches, especially on the disengage. On the engage, it always works. But on the disengage, it's not that nice. I don't really like it. I could take it or leave it, and mostly I could leave it. It's just little things that knife companies put on their knives that they think makes it better, but really it creates annoyances. So that's that. It's time now to take the knife apart and show you what it looks like on the inside. Well, the first thing I'm going to say is it's not a T10, it's a T15 for the pivot screw. The other ones are T6s. It didn't come apart too terribly well. You can see how this is made. We've got some tiny little parts right here. I've got a very tiny steel ball bearing and a very tiny spring. I know that has to do, with that lock arm that slides back and forth right in here. I'm sure the detemp ball works on these two little holes right here that are in this part. So I did notice, though, now that I can see the inside, the tip of the blade has hit the fiber reinforced nylon right there. So the stop pin, sitting in this sort of, it is soft material as compared to steel. So it has flexed a little bit. And so the blade tip does hit right there a little bit. So I don't know. It is a budget knife. We've got these white nylon washers, which are just fine. I don't usually use lubrication with those. They work just fine without it. It's an okay knife, but for a budget version of this knife, I wish they would have left this out completely. They could have made the knife even cheaper, less money, because this is a fairly complicated thing. It's time for me to put this knife back together again. Okay, so I got it back together. It took a bit of work. Don't take these screws out when you're trying to take the knife apart. I did, and it was not a smart idea. I'm just snugging them up just enough now so that the system will work again. If you tighten them all the way down when you've got it apart, it's not going to work. So what did I say about these screws back here? Yes, I said we need more robust screws than that, and yeah, we do. The head of this screw broke off back here. While I was trying to tighten it up, and I didn't over tighten it because look, there's a space there still. So it's not all the way tight yet because it goes tight like that. The screw just snapped. Well, it turns out that is a totally proprietary pin back there. And so there's no way for me to take that tiny little thing out there. You know, on a huge screw, you know, you can, drill it out and stuff and things, but on something this tiny, I just don't have that skill set to do that. And, unless I can find these body screws, I don't know. I don't even know. Does Cold Steel have a rule saying if you take the knife apart, you void the warranty? I don't know. But I'll ask. I just don't like that as well. It's a robust knife, overbuilt, except for, the point where it failed. It's just, come on, Cold Steel. You know better. Hopefully the new owners won't make this kind of mistake again. Hopefully, before they do any more runs of this knife, they fix that and they fix this tiny little thing here, because that's nonsense. Like, that's not hard to fix. Thanks to my Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And to everyone who's looking for one of these, are they good? Yeah, they're pretty good. Don't take it apart unless you absolutely have to. That's my advice. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.